okay, people twisted my arm. I'm going to talk about MVP and Triple H. We're going to discuss this mainly because it popped up in Newsweek. So it was something that was beyond the dirt sheets. Newsweek is a pretty big publication. And MVP says he has no respect for Triple H. And this is the reason why. He says, let's just say this. Bobby Lashley was a 2-time WWE champion. And after he took over, he being Triple H, Bobby Lashley was reduced to the mid-card. Bobby Lashley is a bankable, marketable guy. A 2-time WWE champion just got reduced to mid-card. Whatever. Then he later says, what I said specifically in response to the person on my Instagram page was that you see it, in my opinion, of how he chooses to book certain talents. Some people say all that, MVP's just griping, MVP's just crying. Okay, well, just watch the program. Who were the people in the top spots under his leadership? Who were given the opportunities? And I'm not talking about NXT. I'm talking about the main show. So he's, of course, now again implying that Triple H is racist. He says, and I'll be honest with you, my issues with him have nothing to do with race. My issues have to do with him as a person and our personal interactions and things that he said and did that caused me to have zero respect for him. He says, I have my opinions based on my personal experiences, and at some points on my podcast and my YouTube show, I'll talk about it and I'll go in depth about what my issues are with that man. But I'll get into that on my show, Marking Out with MVP and Dwayne Swayze. So, we see a lot of people now, they're trying to, quote unquote, analyze Bobby Lashley's booking when Vince was there compared to when Triple H was there. I think that it's pretty obvious that Lashley fell off a cliff when Triple H took over. And nobody's even denying that. You know, if you backtrack the last couple of months of Bobby Lashley's career, he was teaming up with the Street Profits, which is fine, right? But that was sporadically. They barely did anything. They had B-Fab in the group. They barely had any motion as a faction. It was a good idea. I actually don't hate the idea, but there was no motion to that faction. And weeks and weeks and weeks would go by without Lashley doing anything on TV. And then he finally just disappeared. And even after he was gone, they kept the Street Profits and B-Fab together for a little while. And then that was separated with no forward motion either. Now, some people are going to say, well, look at Bobby Lashley's time with Vince. They go back to some of the crazy storylines that he did with the sisters or the posing and all that sort of stuff, which everybody goes through. Pretty much everybody has done really ridiculous storylines under Vince McMahon. Everybody's done it. So it's not like Lashley was the only one doing pose downs, because he had been doing pose downs with Rick Rude and the Ultimate Warrior. You know, like, so what? He was doing pose downs. What was this, the sisters or whatever? I don't even remember that thing, but they are ridiculous storylines. Everybody does it. The Rusev and Lana thing, whatever. MVP's point is that Lashley was a top guy and was valued when Vince was there. Now, one of the most interesting tweets I saw says, the last Raw before Triple H took over featured a pose down between Austin Theory and Lashley was wrestling for the U.S. title. He was already in the mid-card. What he, of course, neglects, because this is a snapshot in history, and that this was in July of 2022. In February of 2022, Lashley is wrestling Brock Lesnar. All right? Now, it's common sense that if you're trying to build up a guy like Austin Theory, you would put him against other top guys, right? So Lashley is wrestling Brock Lesnar. He didn't get a big match at WrestleMania. He wrestled Omos. It wasn't a huge match. But Bobby Lashley is, of course, a 2-time WWE champion. He had wrestled Bill Goldberg. He had, wrestled and beat, I think he beat Randy Orton. I might have him mixed up. I know he beat Drew McIntyre at the WrestleMania before that. He had a solid 2 years of being built up as a formidable main event guy, and he was going to give the rub to Austin Theory. that doesn't mean that was where he was going to be forever. Because again, guys like Drew McIntyre, he wrestled like who did he wrestle, like Madcap Moss at WrestleMania? That's not where he was going to be forever. They do these things where they're giving people a rub. You know, you have to book people who are mid-card or who are upper mid-card or who you want to build against top guys. Drew McIntyre is not a mid-carder, right? Lashley was not a mid-carder. That was the closing segment of Raw, by the way. So, when you talk about what happened, just from the on-screen perspective, it absolutely did a great deal of damage to Lashley's career. When Triple H took over, he had no interest in him. Now, be that as it may, what MVP is implying is look who got the push and look who got pushed out. And it has been a lot of conversation about there not being a lot of black talent featured on WWE, especially their pay-per-views, since Triple H took over. And he even says he doesn't mean NXT, he means the main show. One of the things that happened recently is this young lady named Kylie Armstrong. She's basically like the love child of Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair. She's a very good talent. She became the Evolve Women's Champion. She's a black girl. And people are like, oh, look at what they're doing with Trick Williams and what they have done with like Carmelo Hayes and NXT, but it doesn't translate to the main roster where black talent doesn't get that same opportunity. And MVP has been hyping on this for a really long time. He's been hyping on this for like a year and some change now, right? That the main event scene got extremely white once those guys were gone. Can you really deny it? You can't deny it. It's a fact, okay? That being said, I don't necessarily look at it from Triple H being a racist. I look at it from the perspective of Triple H wanted to have his own guys. He had his own guys in NXT, and a lot of those guys were the people he's pushing now. Owens, Zayn, Rollins, those guys. These are the guys he liked when he was booking NXT. Finn Balor. He gave a whole lot of time to Shayna Baszler before she finally got released. He was trying to rebuild her. He spent a lot of time trying to rebuild a lot of the talent that he really liked when he was in NXT. People like Bayley. People like, Tyler Bate. People like Pete Dunne. All these people just happen to be white. But these are the people that Triple H was familiar with, who buy into the Papa H elements, right? The Johnny Garganos and the Tommaso Ciampas. And then he's bringing in, the Motor City Machine Guns and stuff like this. Like, it's not necessarily racial, but the results have been racist. Is it racist decision making? Probably not. Is it a racist outcome? Yes. Yes. The amount of black people, men and women, who have fallen from grace since Triple H took over has been absolutely undeniable. You can't deny it. We're back to the days of black people being put in tag teams. We're literally like back in like 1982. Where like the tag team champions are black, but none of the singles champions are black. On the main roster. Right? Not even the US or the Intercontinental champion. As a matter of fact, I can't even think of the last time a black wrestler wrestled in a one-on-one match for one of those titles. Maybe Carmelo Hayes. Maybe. I don't know how many months ago that was. But this is just me speaking objectively. I'm not one to jump to the conclusion that the man is racist. I can say I'm not a fan of the outcome. Right? Because it just so happens that some of my favorite wrestlers who happen to be black are being affected by this stupid ass booking. But I could also say I was a fan of Austin Theory and he got screwed. Okay? It's happened to white people that I like too. It's happened to other women's wrestlers that I liked as well. But this issue between Triple H and MVP is personal, as MVP said, right? He said he has his personal issues with Triple H. He said that it was personal interactions that is why he doesn't respect Triple H. Now, we're not privy to this personal information and these personal interactions. Now, I know that there's going to be super sleuths on the internet, putting their fingers under the cupboards and, trying to look under the couch to find crumbs of racism that they can say, this is why. But Triple H, remember, he collected tons of heat during his time as a wrestler. And MVP was on the roster at that time. There's likely some issues that could possibly go back 20 years. We know that, MVP is the kind of guy who holds a grudge. Him and Jericho didn't get along, but that was over some stuff that was over 10 years ago. It's likely that it could be related to matches that they were in, them just having a lack of familiarity working together. But right now, as we talk about this on May 30th, 2025, what we're talking about is MVP not appreciating how Triple H books black talent. He's talked about this in 2024. He's consistent and still talking about it now. And the problem has not changed from then to now. So why should he say anything different? Why would he mention anything different? Remember, MVP is also an Omos guy, right? And the internet will tell you Omos was doing great in Japan. All of a sudden, WWE calls Omos from Japan and he hasn't done anything since. He's not even on TV. He hasn't been used. He's been back in the States 4 months now. And he got called back from Japan, earlier 2025? We don't know what's going on, man. But we're looking at this situation and we're talking about booking. We're not talking about Triple H being a legit racist. But we can say that the results of Triple H's favoritism has not been favorable to the Negro race. And I think that's fair to say. Because as a member of the Negro race who has been watching this show, I can tell you that the amount of Negroes has decreased substantially. All right? It has decreased substantially. And that is a problem. But it's only a problem because I like the Negroes that were in place. If I didn't like the Negroes, I wouldn't care. Right? If Shawn Spears was black, you couldn't pay me to like him. So it's not an issue about whether MVP is lying or not. Hell, everybody who's watching the show should have realized that the amount of black talent being pushed has diminished. I mean, that's not deniable. You can't even deny that. The issue here is it being done because Triple H is a racist? And that has yet to be proven. I just think that Triple H, he favors certain talent. And these talent just happen to be white. And most wrestlers in the company just happen to be white. And he wants to put his people in position. He's 3 years in. And he's got his guys in position now. It's just that none of those guys just happen to be black. And I think that is an issue. I also think that Dragon Lee not getting pushed is bullshit. He's not black. I think that is really stupid that Pat McAfee had a match on pay-per-view and that Logan Paul is getting a run, but, Carmelo Hayes can't get on pay-per-view. I think that's bullshit. Also think it's bullshit that Andrade is not getting a run. There's a lot of people of a lot of different races that I'm looking at and saying, what is Triple H doing? What's the point in bringing some of these people in if you're not going to do anything with them? But it is adversely affecting the Negro race. And MVP just mentioned that. And I don't have a problem with it. I don't like that he's implying that Triple H is racist because, again, it feeds the woke narrative that everything is racist and everybody is racist. But you cannot lie and say that the outcome of Triple H's favoritism has not been a much whiter WWE. And that has been the case thus far. But at least we got NXT, and I love NXT. I don't give a fuck about Raw and SmackDown. Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.
MagMongoSlade. Best house I ever drew, Daddy.